Hey folks, did you know on average it takes police 45 minutes to respond to a home security alarm? I tell you what, these days more than ever, folks are concerned about their safety. That's almost an hour for police to respond. When a home security system is triggered, a lot of the time police will assume it's a false alarm and the call goes to the bottom of the list, but that doesn't happen when you use SimpliSafe Home Security. SimpliSafe has video verification technology. It's going to help police get on the scene up to 3.5 times faster. SimpliSafe also protects every door, window, and room with 24/7 professional monitoring. And we're going to make it easy on you. A lot less worries, and hey, when you do business with them, there's no contract, there's no hidden fees or fine print. Prices are always fair and honest. Around-the-clock monitoring starts at just $15 a month. So here's what you got to do. If you listen to this podcast, go to SimpliSafe. SimpliSafe's got a deal going on for you right now. You go to simplisafe.com/watchchad, get free shipping and money-back guarantee. That's SimpliSafe, SIMPLI, safe.com/watchchad. Go there now. Get it today. It is party time, Mom, although it's somewhat of a sad party. I want to talk to you guys about something today for a little bit before we get into the podcast. I want to say welcome, of course, to this mothership, which is Studio 22. We have Puppet Master Mark over here at the helm, of course. And in the peanut gallery, we have got Party Foul Steve and Candice, the queen of the Ethiopians, who we will get to in a few minutes. But I want to get something off my chest. And I think everybody out there wants to get something off their chest, too. And if you were on Twitter at all this weekend, following these tragic shootings, which over 30 lives were lost between two different shootings in El Paso, Texas, and Dayton, Ohio, we know that this is a national tragedy that's happened way too many times, that every time it happens, we're shocked all over again. And what do? We want to lash out because we're sad, we're angry, we're concerned, we're worried. And the only thing we know to do is express ourselves in the best way we know how. And sometimes that can come out as saying, well, I want to offer thoughts and prayers. And I still contend there's nothing wrong with saying that. I don't really need you thinking about me. I like it when you pray for me. Thinking about me is not going to do me a whole lot of good. But I do believe in prayer. So there's nothing wrong with that, even though there's a lot of attacks out there. But there's more to it. And I know that there's frustration out there because everybody, and I don't care how conservative you are, everybody out there, you have this idea in your mind, this concern where you say, something's got to be done. But what? What can be changed? Well, that's a debate that's going to go on and on and on. We know this. But if you get on social media, you're going to see everybody going at each other, people calling each other white supremacists, and guns need to be banned, and this needs to change, and red flag laws, and all of these crazy ideas that are out there that just, we'll get into that. But it's just crazy how people go at each other, and they immediately begin to politicize these tragedies. It's a sad deal. It's a sad deal. Tragedy should bring a family together. I mean, have you ever had an argument or a feud going on somewhere within your family, maybe a third cousin, and then all of a sudden, an aunt dies and everybody comes to the funeral, and they put aside their differences for a little while in order to grieve and mourn the loss of that person. But these days, we don't even do that as a nation. When we lose people tragically to gun violence like this and these mass shootings that happen at the hands of a deranged nut job who has obvious mental illness, we don't even come together anymore. We immediately look for bigger ways to divide ourselves and politicize these tragedies so that we can, best pursue our agendas, whatever those may be, and everybody has one, whether it's the left or the right. I want to tell you guys a story, actually two stories. So first of all, I spent yesterday all day long in a board meeting, board of directors, as you know, the American Valor Foundation. I'm a board member there. That is the foundation that was started by Chris Kyle's, the late Chris Kyle's brother and sister-in-law and his mother and father. And so I sat there in that room with them all day yesterday. We had a long board meeting, very productive, tremendous things came out of it. I'm just so excited always to be a part of that organization. And by the way, I will encourage you to go to AmericanValorFoundation.org and check out some of the events we have coming up. Very worthwhile, very exciting. But I sat there with some, Chris's mom and Debbie. She sat right there beside me all day, and we cut jokes and had fun like we normally do. And Wayne, Chris's dad, sat across the table from me, and I look at him almost like a father figure in many ways because I got so much deep respect for him. And then there's the other gentlemen that are parts of the board, including Jeff, Chris's brother. Every man in the room is a concealed handgun carrier. Every single man in the room had a handgun on them. Now, you'd have never known it, but they did. We even made a joke about it at one point in time, and everybody pulled up their shirt, and there was their handgun. Okay, well, we sat in there for 8 hours together. Nobody got shot. Isn't it amazing how that works? Not a single person was even afraid that the other person had a gun on their person. I felt actually safer. I was at an event Saturday night, sitting in someone's backyard, having a conversation and an adult beverage around, sitting in a gazebo in their backyard, and I look and I could see the tip of a concealed weapon underneath the shirt of the guy I was sitting there talking to. Did that make me feel afraid? Absolutely not. It made me feel more secure knowing that my friend that I was talking to was carrying a firearm. That's the day we live in. Now, some people would be triggered by that. Some people would be upset because we believe that we're living in this nation that is so divided between races and sexual preferences and genders and all of these things. It's crazy where we've gotten to, how different we think the world is. But is it really that different? Because when I left that board meeting, let me tell you what happened. It was significant. It was so simple that it was significant. I left there and I went out around the corner. I was in Dallas. I was not in a great part of town. I'll just be honest with you. And I'm telling you, anybody that's over there, I don't care who you are, who you think you are, you would admit, if you were with me, we were not in a great part of town. But I don't walk in fear. I don't live like that. I believe in people. I love people. I don't take risks. I don't take chances. I don't do stupid things. But I'm not going to walk in fear either. So I was looking for a cigar shop. So I found one. And it's a great one. Right over there, and I'll go back many, many times. So here's the deal. I park my truck, get out, go into the cigar shop, and somebody says, "Hey, Chad." And I look over, and it's a guy I hadn't seen in a year, a good friend of mine, Rick, and he's sitting there smoking a cigar. And we shook hands and had a chat, and he introduced me to a guy who was sitting there smoking a cigar. And so we got to know each other. And so I went back there in the humidor, got a couple of cigars, bought them. Party Foul Steve took a couple of them home with him. I had to drop them off at the house over there. You're welcome, Steve. But I took one because I wanted to visit with my friends, my friend and my new friend. And so we smoked a cigar together and we sat around and we chatted. And the guy I met that was sitting there, the new guy, he was from Folsom, California. He was a psychologist, works at Folsom Prison as a counselor. And we had an engaging conversation about life and family and politics, and we talked about the nature of things in America and race relations and all of these things, and we just had a blast. I put him on the list to get free tickets and all access passes when I come out and do my show in September in Folsom, California. I told him, I said, bring your family, just let me know if you want to bring some more folks. We traded information, promised to stay in touch, just had a great time with each other, and having known the guy 30 minutes when he left the store, we embraced in a hug and did the guy things, where you bump and all this kind of stuff. So that it was a new friend. I was excited. Now, does it surprise you at all that this guy that I met, AJ, was a black man? Does it bother? Do you even cross your mind that the guy was a different color, a different race than me? That we were able to sit down and engage each other and in the bond of mutual manhood and friendship, embrace each other as persons, as humans, as minds, and as spirits. See, that's the real world. We're too busy wrapped up in this virtual world of calling people white supremacists and racists and all of these other things that we don't realize that the real world out there is not like that at all. So what you have is people who are so dang confused because they think that what's online is real. It's not, folks. It is a virtual world. You don't walk into a restaurant and immediately start talking to the crowd and trying to pick out what their politics are. You get to know the person. You don't just walk in and start an argument over politics with a stranger every time you go into a public place. But here's the problem. Here's the danger in this level of vitriol, in this level of logic. And you got to stop with this online rhetoric that's calling everybody else full of hate because you don't know that. Yes, 2 mentally ill individuals walked into 2 public places over this weekend and killed a lot of people in a very short period of time. It's tragic. But you don't take the crime committed by an individual and apply it to all of society. That's not how this works. And that's exactly what people online are trying to do. You're creating virtual hate. So now you have politicians who are running for office who are going to come out and they're going to say, well, President Donald Trump is an avowed racist and white supremacist. What in the world are you even talking about? I'm white. I grew up in the South. To my knowledge, I've never met a so-called white supremacist. In fact, I said it on Twitter. It trended very heavily over the weekend. I said, if you think the color of your skin gives you some form of supremacy, then you're an asshole. It's that simple. It's that simple. All of that stuff, any hate group that exists out there, from Antifa to white supremacy to the KKK to BLM, I don't care who you affiliate yourself with. If it's hate and you're trying to become supreme because of your skin color, I disavow you. I condemn you wholeheartedly. You're creating nothing but problems for this country. You don't condemn a society or a group of society because of the crimes of an individual. You can't do it. So these politicians who want to come out here and say these things and continue to accuse a whole group of people of being racist or white supremacists or hate groups, you are doing more damage online than you can ever imagine. It is you that is creating the vitriol and the anger and the rage that makes these mentally ill people who think that the online world is the real world go out and do these things. You can't accuse society of being evil when it is a minority of people committing the crimes. You got to focus on the criminal. But instead, we want to focus on an inanimate object. We want to blame the gun. We want to blame the magazine that's full of, a high-capacity magazine. We want to blame the ammunition. We want to blame the environment. We want to blame the no-go zone or the gun-free zones. We want to blame, red flag laws. We want to blame video games. We want to blame everything we can. Blame the criminal. And until we start taking accountability for these people, these young men, who obviously are being bullied at some point in time in their life. That's why they're lashing out the way they are. Parents, one of the biggest problems we have is that we have taught our children to walk away from bullies. You don't walk away from bullies. You send the bully home with a Ziploc bag full of his teeth. You don't walk away from bullies. You stand up to bullies, and if the bully kicks your ass, then you just got an ass kicking and you learn from it. But it toughens you up. Our kids have got to learn rejection. Our kids have got to learn loss. Our kids have got to learn what it's like to be persecuted. They got to know what failure feels like, and they got to know what it means to feel bad. But telling them yes all the time and coddling them and fighting for them and making sure they never get a boo-boo or a scratch is BS. We're raising a coddled society of young men and women who have no ability to face the real world. And so when you have one with a twisted mental illness that's going off like this, who has immersed themselves into an online culture of hate, this is the end result of what you're going to see. Hands down, it's what you're going to see. It's going to happen again and again and again. I'm telling you. Now, what do we do? Do you want to ban guns? You want to ban firearms? All of these things. There are going to be people out there who say, yes, absolutely. Well, I just watched a video last week of a dude in Germany who took a samurai sword and hacked a guy to death. People that want to kill people are going to find a way to kill people. I don't care if it's Timothy McVeigh with a moving truck and a bunch of fertilizer, or it's some guy in Britain who's stabbing people, all the way down to, you get the point I'm trying to make. They were setting off bombs in Austin, Texas. Guns weren't necessary to kill people. The issue is the person. The issue is the criminal. It is the condition of the criminal. And I can speak a lot on my opinions of what needs to happen and what needs to be done to these people. But first, I want us to get back to the group here. What laws can you change? I listened to Trey Gowdy yesterday, and he said, look, I'm willing to give up any right if you can tell me a validated quantitative right or rule or law that we can pass to make this stop. He said, I'll give up whatever right I need to give up if you can tell me a measurable way to make this stop. In other words, show me a law that works. There are people who are going to say, well, there's loopholes in the buying in the gun shows and the NRA and Dana Lash and blah, 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 blah. Give me a break. Universal background checks have grown every FBI universal background checks have grown in this nation every single year. If you go back to 2004 and measure it up, there's been 193 million universal background checks. You can't tell me that background checks aren't in effect. 2016, our own Senator John Cornyn here in Texas proposed a bill that would cause people 72 hours to wait on the purchase of a handgun or any gun, any firearm rather, and to see if they were on a FBI terror watch list. Democrats in Congress in Washington, D.C. voted it down. Don't sit here and tell me that Democrats want to save lives from guns. They voted it down. So your rhetoric is just that. It's rhetoric. What laws do you want to change? How do you fix this thing? Candace, Steve, Mark, is there a law that you can think of that's not already on the books that makes it impossible for these things to happen? We live in a country where there's more guns than people. Personally, it doesn't bother me. Doesn't bother me. Does it bother you, Candace?
No, but I don't know where, there's always going to be a loophole, unfortunately. Like you said, if people have it in their heart to do something that heinous, it doesn't matter. Look at London.
That's exactly right.
Isn't Edinburgh the murder capital of Europe? And it's all gun outlawed there as well. Yeah. So
Colin Noir sat right here in this chair next to me. He sat right here. And I brought up the point. I said, the argument about Chicago, okay? 25 people died in a span of, 4 hours in Chicago over the weekend. Why isn't that in the media? Why isn't that gun violence in the media? Because it doesn't fit the frickin' narrative. It's ridiculous. These people in the inner city, Baltimore had a ceasefire weekend. Imagine having to live in a city that they have, on Mother's Day weekend, they call a ceasefire. Is this Gaza? We're talking 25 miles outside of the nation's capital.
Did the gangbangers abide by this?
They're setting a record on how many have been killed in their ceasefire weekends this year.
They just challenged every, criminal out there.
The record's 309 a year on ceasefire weekends. They've already done over 200. So Baltimore's set to break their record. Good job. The Charm City. That's the nickname of Baltimore. The Charm City.
Have you seen the flashing speed limit signs on the side of the road that when you get up to a certain speed, it flashes because you're going over the speed? I like to see how high I can make it go. So I can, if I can get it, see if I can get it, really high. So I think it works the opposite of the way they think it does. A ceasefire weekend.
You're thinking it's like reverse psychology.
Yeah, it is total reverse psychology.
It's like, hey, nobody else is shooting. I'm getting mines.
Yeah.
Well, that's how ludicrous it is in the Charm City.
Yeah.
Baltimore. Charming garbage bags is what it is. But Candace, you're right. It's not going to stop anything because people are going to find. I had a guy to your point about the car in the thing. I did a tweet. It was early in the morning, 4 a.m, and I'd made this comment. And you know what? I'm going to look it up. You guys can. I'll find it here real quick. But this is the thing. I want to show you guys how bad this logic is that's out there. So on Twitter, and people are always. It's funny how people are always like, "Wow, you're up early." Yeah, getting it done, boo.
And then you go back to sleep.
Yeah,
sleep 6 hours.
Yeah, so I told the story via Twitter about sitting in the boardroom. And in the tweet I said, I sat in a long board meeting today. Every man in the room was carrying a handgun. No one got shot. Guns don't kill people by themselves. 6 years ago, on February 2nd, one board member's son was killed when a nut shot him. His name was Chris Kyle. The difference? The nut. And somebody came in there and said that, let me find it here. Oh, there's so much garbage in this thing. Anyway, this person who made the comment, he said, well, let's say a person drives through a school zone too fast, but nobody got hurt. Does that mean, I'm like, what kind of logic are you even trying to make here? you're talking about misusing the car, which in this case would be the weapon, and you were fortunate enough nobody got hurt. I'm not talking about misusing the weapon, the gun that we had on our person. I'm talking about properly handling that thing. You know, it's a big difference. We're not talking about speeding here. We're not talking about misusing a car. We're not talking about misusing a gun. We're talking about properly using the gun. And that's where this thing has gone to. This logic is just asinine. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I rarely agree with, astrophysicist, he started talking about all the different ways people died over the weekend. And how many people died of, car accidents, and how many people died of gun deaths, and how many people died of suicide, and how many people died from cancer.
And malpractice.
Medical malpractice, or from the flu. And he said, but we don't talk about that because that's not what sells in the media. And he's caught pure hell over it for just pointing out what people flock to. What people flock to. And some of the responses that were in there, and I see where people are coming from, the responses were, yeah, but we're working on vaccines for the flu, and we're working on, fighting cancer, and we're working on, we have seat belts in our cars and these things. So why aren't we taking these extra steps to do things for guns? Well, no, let's unpack all that. What you want, and you can say you don't, but they exposed themselves this weekend on Twitter. They came out and exposed themselves. They want guns gone. Now here's the thing. They want to start with what they call an assault rifle, AR-15, AK-47, something like that, something that has a pistol grip on it. And by the way, you know this, folks, AR-15, AR does not stand for assault rifle, okay? It stands for Armalite rifle. Yeah. It's a brand. So it's not an assault rifle. Any weapon I shoot at you with is an assault weapon, okay? If I use a slingshot and throw a rock at you, that's an assault slingshot, okay? So, and you guys know this stuff, but they want to start there. And they keep saying, oh, no, you can keep your shotguns, you can keep your hunting rifles, and you can keep your handguns. And by the way, and you know this too, the majority of shootings and deaths that have happened historically in America have been done by handguns, not any form of rifle. But let's talk about hunting rifles. Let's go back to when the DC sniper was going around killing people who were pumping gas in their vehicles. You remember that? What was he using? He wasn't using an AR-15, wasn't using an AK-47. No, he was sniping people using a hunting rifle. So if you look at these things, what are you going to do? You're going to start there. They want gun confiscation. They want guns gone. They want guns gone. Do you remember a few years back when the power outage happened in New England, New York, all the way up into Toronto, up into the Canada? Just like if you looked at the satellite, the entire northeast of the U.S. was just blacked out. Yep. That cost tens of billions of dollars. Do you know what the most readily available resource, the most important readily available resource that everyone has in America that is used more than anything else in their homes? Electricity. Oh. Electricity. You wipe out electricity, you stop everything. You can't pump fuel without electricity. You can't communicate without electricity.
Supermarket, like refrigerations?
Gone.
Gone. Food,
you can't
gone.
even bring the trucking in to bring the food in. It's all gone. If you interrupt electricity, you got a problem. Now, that's a very simple thing. Do you think places like China aren't sitting around looking at ways that all they got to do, if they wanted to have unrestricted warfare, which I promise you, if we ever go to war with China, it will be unrestricted warfare. That's the way China looks at it. See, China was so blown away with the speed at which we beat Saddam Hussein in the Kuwait War, in the Gulf War. I mean, we just came in and obliterated them in a matter of days, right? They knew that hand-to-hand tactical, there was no way they were going to battle us sword for sword. So China, who's very, very smart, and we're very, very not, China is looking at ways to do unrestricted warfare. In other words, we're not going to play by the rules. We're going to beat you by the ways we can. We know we can't go tank to tank, so we're going to do things like knock out your power grids. We're going to make sure that you're in the dark. We're going to make sure that you can't get food and can't get communication. You can't get your water. You can't heat and cool yourself. Can't do any of these things. You're back in the dark ages all of a sudden.
And you're talking about chaos.
Chaos. That few days when it cost $10 billion. What were you going to say, Candace?
There was a study done because Ted Cruz tried passing some legislation to rebuild the infrastructure around our electrical grid about 4 years ago. And because of the threat of electromagnetic pulses that could knock out the power, and they gave it 48 hours before it was just all out.
And you don't think, and people out there, they don't understand things like electromagnetic pulses, the EMP bombs and the EMP charges. This is the kind of thing, you get one powerful enough, it's going to shut down everything electrical anywhere in its vicinity. That includes airplanes that are flying overhead.
And it's not just from different countries. It could also be from solar flares from
Exactly.
the sun. We had one in 1947 or something that knocked out power to San Francisco, I believe.
Yeah.
I might be wrong on that, but it's from the sun.
But it puts you in the dark ages. I mean, immediately. You're set back. Okay, I've belabored that point. Now, let's say that were to happen. Let's say suddenly half or all the country was just plunged into darkness. Now, we've already seen, a quarter of it plunged into darkness over, a situation. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do at that point? You got chaos that's ensuing. You got people going crazy. You're going to have looting. You're going to have riots. You're going to have chaos. You're going to have killings. You're going to have every man for himself. Now, hey, is it an extreme situation? Yeah, I think we're living in extremes these days. What are you going to do? Can you protect your family? Do you have that ability? Well, you wouldn't last but a matter of days. A few more days longer than you will without a gun. I can tell you that. Now, when you're plunged into anarchy, see, that's the thing. Folks in America, in this first world culture, we've never experienced any suffering. Not this generation. Last generation really experienced any real suffering. Real suffering. That generation's dying off, if not already gone. We haven't experienced anything. We're out there creating problems. We want to be victims so bad that we're creating problems to have because we don't have enough. So what do? We go out there and build some. And this is what I'm talking about. We all of a sudden, we're persecuted. Well, everybody's racist and everybody's white supremacist and everybody hates this and hates that. No, they don't. If you don't believe me, come sit down with me in the cigar shop and I'll introduce you to my people from across all kind of cultures. And you know what? We shared in common a freaking cigar. But we found out that we liked each other and we could be friends and we could fellowship together and have a relationship and it would be an ongoing friendship. And I mean, that's the way America works. That's the way it is. Stop creating the problems. I almost made you do a timestamp.
I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Censoring yourself.
But I get fired up over this thing, man, because you're creating virtual problems. You're going online, you're creating virtual problems, and then you want to just eradicate everything. First of all, I was going to say earlier, Colin Noir sat right here in this chair, and I asked him, I said, okay, so they're getting guns, bringing them over from Indiana into Chicago. Strict gun control in Chicago, strictest in the nation, second, I think, strictest. And people say, yeah, but they're going to Indiana where they can get them easily and they're bringing them over. Why, if it's so easy to get guns in Indiana, aren't everybody in Indiana killing each other? They're not. You would think if it's just about access to guns, everybody in Indiana be shooting each other, but they're not. They're going back over to Chicago where the problem exists and doing it there because it's a person problem. It's not a gun problem. You don't just come in and say, well, we got to get rid of the Second Amendment. Well, you could kiss my ass because we're not getting rid of the Second Amendment. And there's a bunch of Americans out there that I promise you, you ain't getting rid of the Second Amendment without some problems coming down the pike. Now, and I don't say that in some big, bold, boisterous, banny rooster way. I ain't saying it like that. I'm just saying, people fought, bled, and died for that amendment to be where it is, and it's there on purpose. And when chaos comes out, what are you going to do? I mean, you're going to sit there and say, we're going to ban AR-15s, but you can keep your handguns? Come on. You know the West Virginia University shooter used only handguns. Only handguns. He killed, what, 41 people? Something like that? 41 people. And by the way, he was a person of color. He wasn't a white guy. So this whole everything mass shooting is all about white supremacy and white hate. Shut up. Just shut up. Shut up. You are instigating this crap by creating division and trying to build on it politically. It's ridiculous. Candace?
Yeah.
I just had to take a breath. I saw
she's just playing with a button. I thought she had something important to say.
I was ready to.
Red flag laws, by the way, are not the answer. I was disappointed when Representative Dan Crenshaw tweeted that over the weekend about maybe we need to explore, states need to explore red flag laws. What's a red flag law? Red flag law means that if I feel like a family member is potentially going to harm themselves, I can ask law enforcement to go take their guns away for a period of time while they get help, okay? That's dangerous. That's a very slippery slope. We've already had a guy, I think it was in Maryland, who was a veteran, who wound up getting killed by a police officer because he wasn't going to give up his gun. When you have law enforcement trying to determine your mental fitness in regards to whether your gun should be taken away, that gets into a dangerous situation. That's not how that needs to go down, okay? Because then they can start, then it gets crazy because here's where it gets a little interesting. Because then you can start accusing people of having mental illness who don't have mental illness. If you start doing that, then every veteran that has PTSD, has PTS, has any emotional problems, anybody that maybe takes a Xanax or a Zoloft or whatever because they deal with a little bit of depression, you can just start telling people, hey, well, they're crazy. You got to go get their guns away from them. And they don't have a problem at all. That gets scary right there. It's dangerous. You can't do that. And so, by the way, when they instituted that in places like Indiana, during that period of time of measurement, gun suicides, yes, they went down, but suicides by other means rose. So if somebody wants to kill themselves, they're going to kill themselves. They truly want to, they're going to. They're going to find a way to do it. And that's the same as what goes for a person who has this intent to go out and harm other innocent people. They're going to find a way to do it. I'm all over the place, but I'm passionate about this thing, Mark. I'm passionate about it because it's a sad situation. It's tragic. I don't ever want to hear about this again. I mean, look, my oldest daughter, she worked all summer long, third shift at a Walmart, which means she was there at night. This thing. She was there that night after the El Paso Walmart shooting, and then the Dayton shooting happened while she was actually at work. And they were nervous. And there's been other threats over the weekend at certain Walmarts and things like that. So I worry as a dad. I worry about my kids being out there. I worry about, do you want to go out in public, really? Do you want to go to a bar and have a drink? Do you want to go to a restaurant? Do you want to go out there and live free like Americans should live? I'm just telling you, you can take away all the guns you want until we address this mental health issue. And I'm telling you, don't make it rote, folks. Don't make it just meaningless rhetoric when I say mental health. We got to find a way to deal with this issue because people aren't getting the help they need to get. And we got to teach our kids not to be bullied, or at least how to deal with bullies and not lash out at other people. This is not a white supremacy issue. That's dumb. That is dumb. And to sit there and continually call the president a white supremacist is asinine and not even close to the truth. Stop taking... Can he be inflammatory? Yes, he can. Can he be childish? Yes, he can. Can he say things that are thin-skinned? Absolutely. Can he word things a different way? Of course he could. But this is what we got, and he ain't going to change in that regard. But I will say the biggest thing you got to do is stop freaking taking everything he says out of context in order to make it fit the narrative you want it to fit. I mean, the guy came out and said, we in every way condemn any form of racism and white supremacy. There is no place for hate in America. And what happens? What happens? Twitter blows up with everybody's opinion of, oh, you son of a you lying sack of, you and your family need to. I mean, one of our own staff writers here was talking about, made a tweet over talking about Planned Parenthood and said, based on the number of black deaths that are happening via Planned Parenthood, if you support Planned Parenthood, then you must be a racist. Pretty logical, actually, when 55% of the black community is being killed off to abortions. And somebody came in there and said, oh, this bee, all she does is everything with her is pro-white. I hate her, and just really going off. I hate white people. White people are horrible. And I'm like, one is talking about the lives of black babies, and you're sitting here talking about hating white people. I think we can see where the problem lies here. Do you see the thing? All you got to do is get out there and just look at all the name calling and the vitriol and the anger. You're pushing more and more division. I'm not a guy who's going to go home and load up my rifles and come out and start a civil war somewhere. But I promise you there's people out there just crazy enough to do it. Keep pushing those buttons. Keep pushing those buttons. You better learn how to come together and smoke a cigar. You better learn how to come together and be brothers and sisters again. It's ugly out there. And parent your children. I mean, I can't imagine the heartbreak. I don't even know the circumstances of the situation of this kid in Dayton. And by the way, why aren't we talking about the kid in Dayton very much? Why aren't we talking about the shooting in Dayton as much as we are El Paso? Because this kid, he drives all the way from Dallas 10 hours down to El Paso with the intent of, and you got to read through the manifesto. We don't know all the details that are there, but the guy, he just says, I just don't feel like this many people coming into the country, we're going to be able to sustain the country. What he was saying wasn't necessarily white supremacist, although it was asshole-ish enough, okay? It was still filled with enough hate. But he goes down there and starts shooting people. But because he's down there and he's targeting so-called Mexicans, we can assume, based on what he said in his whatever manifesto, is he wanted to kill Mexicans. So everybody looks at it and they said, okay, here's a white guy against people of color, so it must be white supremacy. Well, we're not looking at what happened in Dayton at all, because here was a guy who was an avowed socialist. He was a Bernie supporter. He was an Elizabeth Warren supporter and hated Trump and wants to go out there and do these things. Killed his own sister. They don't want to talk about this stuff because it doesn't fit the narrative. They got to talk about it, but they don't want to focus on that one because that doesn't fit the narrative the way the one in El Paso does. Can you imagine the grief and the horror of these parents who lost their son, and the son who did this stuff, but also lost their daughter in the same rampage because of their son's craziness? If you could tell me a law that'll work that's not already on the books, I'll take a look at it. I'd love to see a law that would work. I really would. But that's where we live, folks. America. We didn't used to have these problems. We've always had guns. Since our inception as a nation, we've had guns. We've always had guns. You didn't hear about after the Civil War when there was still a lot of division and stuff like that. People didn't go out because they hated, I'm going to go out there, I'm still in the Confederacy, I'm going to go out there and just mass kill Yankees. Atrocities have always happened. But this stuff that we got going on right now, it's never been like this before because we have failed to address some very serious things. I don't know. Let's get into some conspiracy theories. Maybe the whole thing is, maybe they're just raising up these crazy kids on purpose, paying them off so they can go out there and create this stuff for a political narrative. Maybe they are. I mean, I hate to think that we're living in a world that's that diabolical. But I'm starting to get to a point where I don't know. 3517.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, you never know.
You don't ever know.
Look,
I'm seeing things. I'm like, I can't figure out these pictures from this El Paso thing. Like in one picture, the kid's coming in. First of all, the New York Post, ran two stories. They showed up on the same page. Same basic headlines showing two different individuals.
Is that the way his pants were different? He had tactical pants.
Well, no, but they're two different pictures of their face, two different mugshots. There is also that where they got one kid handcuffed out in the parking lot, and he's wearing khakis. The kid who came in the store was wearing cargo pants. He had pockets on his, very clearly seen. I heard people doing this. I went and did it. You go on Google Maps, or I went on my little deal, and where you can zoom in from a satellite image. I went to all the Walmarts in El Paso. I couldn't find the word stop on the ground in any of their parking lots. From that security footage, you can clearly see the word stop written on the ground behind him.
Yeah, your Google image could be 5 years old too. It's
not. Okay. People are looking, they're doing Google Maps right now. You know what it does say on the ground in those Walmarts?
What?
Yield. People have gone out there, people have said, who are from there have said, that parking lot doesn't say stop. Now, maybe people are lying. Could be. What are we looking at here? What's the deal? Why were there reports at the beginning of this thing that said there were 3 or 4 active shooters at the El Paso Walmart? That's what I heard. Where I was when the news broke, and trust me, my phone goes off when the news breaks, said there are multiple active shooters at this Cielo Walmart.
I want to know why he was apprehended.
Well, I think
that's never been apprehended.
That's the question a lot of people ask, but that's the rule of law. I mean, that's what you got to do. If you can apprehend them, you got to apprehend them. I mean, this kid didn't want to get hurt. He was wearing earmuffs.
Yeah.
I mean, he was trying to protect himself with earmuffs. Anyway.
I wonder if he thought he was going to get out of there. It's kind of crazy.
Well, in his manifesto, he said that he expected he wasn't. Now, if the guy in Dayton. And I keep referring to him as kid. I shouldn't do that because I'm meaning it in a condescending way when I'm saying it.
Yeah.
They're not kids, they're killers. They're murderers. These are premeditated murderers and just horrific individuals. If he'd have made it inside that club, it would have been bad. Thank God for law enforcement that put him down like that. And it would have been a lot worse had he gotten inside that building. A lot worse. So I don't like getting bogged down in conspiracies. That's not what I do. I don't get into all this stuff. I grieve the loss of human life. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're white, black, liberal, conservative. I don't care who you are. I mourn the loss, and I think we all do. Anybody that's normal out there, any normal American, you condemn any hate group. You condemn this type of tragedy. You condemn this type of violence. Nobody looks at this and says, yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. We win. Nobody does that. But I will encourage you folks with this, because this debate's going to go on and on and on, because nobody's going to come up with any real laws. I mean, our Congress is on vacation for the next 6 weeks. They're not coming back to work on legislation. They're on vacation. They're not going to get anything done. What are you going to do? You got half of America. The majority of Americans that own firearms are responsible firearm owners. And my guns have never shot anybody. Steve's guns have never shot anybody. And then I hope to God they never do. But it'll only be in self-defense if it ever happens. But it's going to happen again. That's the sad thing. It's going to happen again, and it's going to continue to happen until we address the real issue. Stop blaming society as a whole. Blame the individual. But society as a whole has got to come together and be what we were created to be, and that is Americans that care about each other and care about our communities and care about our families enough to be there for them. Don't let the babysitter raise your kids. Spend time with your kids. Take them out. Do things with them. Talk to them. Communicate. Let them get mad with you. Let them express themselves. But let them communicate. Do those things. You go out in public, you got to have situational awareness. You got to pay attention to where the exits are. You got to start thinking about who's around you. what's coming through the door at any given time, what's happening out in the parking lot through the windows. You need to be aware of these things. I'm sorry, we don't live in America anymore where we live in some insulated bubble where harm can't touch us. I promise you, if you were in Tel Aviv, or if you were in Jerusalem, or if you were in Jordan or someplace like this, and you were sitting at an outside cafe, you know what you'd be thinking about? I can tell you what I'd be thinking about, because I've been there. Because what do we hear about? We hear about these bombs, car bombs that go off at these cafes. I've sat in Corsican, France, at these side cafes, and I see these little things. It's like an unfolding of a movie scene, and I'm like, God, you can almost picture that. When I'm walking in downtown Manhattan, if I'm walking through Times Square, I see those double-decker buses, and I think immediately of what they've done to double-decker buses by planting bombs on them and things. I avoid those things as much as I can. I'm not getting on a bus in Manhattan, These are the kind of things you got to remember. It can happen. It does happen. On September 11th, 3,000 people went to work that morning not knowing that people were going to start flying jets into public buildings. And 2,997 people lost their lives that day. They were insulated in that thing. And by the way, it wasn't guns that killed them. It wasn't guns. So that's my rambling. That's all I want to say about it. I love all of you. I don't have any hate in my heart. I just kind of took over today because I just had to get it off my chest. And I hate that this is what it had to be. And maybe you made some sense out of these ramblings, maybe not. And maybe you can share it with your friends if you want to. If you don't, screw it. I do love you guys. Steve, I love you. Candice, I love you. Mark, you do all right.
You carried that 42 minutes.
Well, I mean.
That's heavy, though. It is heavy. It
is heavy, and I don't want to have that conversation.
Yep.
I don't want to have that conversation. But I'm not, we're not giving up guns.
No, and I read an article yesterday that was talking about usually after a mass shooting, gun sales rocket. Mm-hmm. But because of gun owners feel pretty secure with Trump as president, that they don't have to worry about it, so their gun sales haven't spiked.
So when Obama was in office, you were exactly right. That's what happened, because I can remember when you could only go to Academy Sporting Goods on Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. You had to stand in line, and then you could buy 2 boxes of 9mm shells.
Yep.
Because that's when the shipment came in. There was a run on them. I can remember when we used to talk about, and I did it, you'd stockpile 22 rounds. Because, hey, if the economy ever collapses, you can use stuff like that for barter. Bullets become your new money, right?
I think they will. I think they will if something like you were talking about earlier happens.
Yeah,
it's all of a sudden.
So all of a sudden, boom! You can't use an ATM machine.
No.
If everything crashes, you can't do that. You can't go out there and just get cash. Your cash is worthless. It's as worthless as the fabric is printed on. Okay. Why do you think I use GMR Gold? Why do you think I invest in gold and silver? You know what I do? GMR Gold. Check them out. GMR Gold, my buddy Charlie Stevens, he'll take care of you. You know what I do? If I get money to invest, I've got money in the stock market, but hey, if something like that happens, what are you going to do? I go to GMR Gold, and I get their bullion box. It comes in every month. But then whenever they have other things that are going, like they have little squares, little break-off squares of silver that you can use almost like currency. They have a certain value to them, and they're just little thin squares. You can almost break it off and use it like immediate currency if you needed it and trade it, because it's valuable. It's got value. Get your gold, get your silver, get your platinum, get those things. This isn't a commercial. I'm just telling you, you got to do stuff like that. You need to get your safe. You got to get your safe.
You know who you're sounding like?
Who?
Sound like Glenn Beck.
well,
it's finally happened.
I mean,
we're doomsdaying it right
here.
Here
we are. You need a good safe. You need a gun safe. You need if you need to have something that's finger activated or whatever, or a code that you can get into in case your electricity does go out. And you need to have that thing in the certain parts of your house where you can get access to a firearm. Look, I don't care who gets mad at me. I'm telling you, this is how I live my life. I have a couple of safes. I have places where I keep my valuables. You want to try and come and take it? Come on, take it. If you get it, you get it. But I promise you, you ain't getting it easy.
We need to go pick up our.
We got new safes that we got new big chest safes that have come in. So we got to go pick them up.
Got Alvarado at Crazy.
Yeah. Got to go down to Crazy Kenny's, a crazy gun dealer.
Yeah.
But you know what? Learn how to use a firearm. Teach your kids how to use a firearm. Pink and her husband. What's her husband's name? Carrie Hart. Yeah. Pink. They got in trouble for showing videos of him teaching his daughter a while back on Instagram or whatever, shooting a .22 rifle and teaching her how to deal. And everybody's like, oh my God. And he said, we don't hunt. We just shoot for sport. We like to target shoot. And I want to make sure that my kids know how to handle a gun and store a gun and use a gun and all these things. That's smart.
He also got blowback from after the fires when there was like threats of them being looters near their property. Him and all his neighbors took pictures with themselves carrying guns in front of their properties, and they also got pushed back from that because they were trying to protect their property when everything was burned down.
Yep, I remember that.
I'm not a big proponent of taking pictures and putting it on social media with yourself with guns.
Well,
Anyway, I think it's stupid.
Yeah.
Me either.
Every now and then I do range
I don't think
shots
there's
or
any,
something like that.
Whatever. I mean, if you're out at the range, you're shooting and blah, blah, blah. That's one thing. But, just posing with guns, never been my thing.
No, I'm not
a gun poser.
I think it's stupid.
I mean, it doesn't make me look tough.
No.
They're a tool.
You don't want to line them out on the bed.
Look, I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to go out there and take pictures with my shovel or a rake, or my whatever, my box fan. I mean, why? It's a tool. It is just a tool. I'm not going to go out there and stand by my, my big chest of ratchets and all that stuff in my garage and be like, hey, look at me. I've got my tool chest. I'm not doing that, I mean, like I might post pictures of guns or just the gun.
Yeah.
Something like that, because guns can be a beautiful thing. I mean, there's the craftsmanship and all these things. I mean, they're a lot of fun. If you don't believe me, let's go out to the range. We'll go out to the range. I'll show you. If you never shot a gun, we'll show you how to shoot. I'll set you up with people who can. And I promise you, there's pure enjoyment in it. My wife, Jade, had never fired a firearm until she married me. I took her to the range. She fell in love with it. She's a great shot. Women tend to be a better shot than men because their finesse muscles they don't try to squeeze into that gun like men do.
Does she want to go out and kill people now, or
not a
just
bit?
To the range?
Not a bit.
Yeah.
And you know what? We take the boys out and we take them to the range. We'll be at the range tomorrow, as a matter of fact. We take the boys out and we shoot with them. And every now and then they'll be like, I don't really like that gun. That's a little bit much for me. And so we'll bring them back down to what they're comfortable with, because I don't want you to be afraid of the gun. I want you to feel like it's a tool that you know how to handle. It's like teaching a kid how to drive a stick shift. I want you to know how to drive. My dad told me, he said, you're going to learn how to drive everything with wheels on it. I don't care if it's a tractor. I don't care what it is. He said, you're going to know, or to an 18-wheeler. He said, you never know what situation you're going to be in. I want you to know how to drive everything that's got wheels. And you know what? He taught me, and I learned. And so, I mean, everything from large equipment and.
But I learned there's a big difference in knowing how to drive it and how to operate it.
There's a very big difference.
I can drive a dozer.
Yeah,
but I cannot operate one.
I learned how to operate it. I did okay with that too. But I mean, I spent my summers on doing that stuff, and I spent a lot of times on a tractor. But I will say this, kids don't want to go learn how to drive a manual these days. They don't want to learn how to drive a stick shift.
No, because you can do it on a video game.
Well, and that's, or why do it when you can use a manual transmission or a automatic transmission? But it's same with learning anything. Maybe you're a little scared of it. Maybe it's something that you got fear of. But I promise you, it's just a tool. People are misusing tools. If all of a sudden everybody went on some rampage and were killing everybody with samurai swords the way the guy did in Germany, and let's face it, if you want to kill people, you'll find a way to kill people. Stop wanting to kill people. Ain't that something? Novel idea. By the way, that's illegal. You're breaking the law when you do it. So you think more laws are going to stop people from doing illegal stuff? No. Say it, Steve.
On another note, if you don't own a gun but you still want to go out and shoot a gun, you can go to any local range. Most of them have a gun that you can borrow or rent from them. Or I am sure you have a friend that has, say, yeah, take mine to the range. And
yep. All the good ranges these days have rentals, so you can go in there and rent, Anyway, pretend you're at the bowling alley.
Yeah, exactly. And you go in there, get what you're comfortable with, and you like it, then you want to go buy your own. You know where,
Yeah. Education's a big deal. All right, we've beat this dog till it's yelping. So all over the place, a million things I could say. We could do another hour of this, but we don't need to. My heart goes out to these folks. But it's not just this tragedy, it's all these tragedies, because it's senseless. It is senseless. There's, murder is senseless. There's no reason to go out there and cause harm to another individual. And I mean, I go all the way back to, my God. I mean, you got Sandy Hook in Newtown, and I know you people are going to come out and start talking false flags, and you're going to talk about conspiracy theories, and I just don't even care. I don't even care. People are dead, and you only have one life, and when you take it like that, it's not yours to take. All right, there's consequences to all that. We've built this entire culture of death around us, where it's okay to murder babies in the womb. Why not? I mean, life's insignificant, right? Well, if that's how you grow up believing, and that's your conviction, and that's what you've been told, is that life is just some matter of choice, and well, why not take another life? I mean, if that's all you've ever known, you've seen it in every movie, you've seen it in every video game, and you're like, well, that doesn't affect. No, it might not affect you because you're sane. But when you got some mother out there who's off his rocker, it's a different story. You don't know how that affects their brains and what they see. We've pumped violence into everything.
Desensitized.
We've tried to find more ways to show violence. I mean, my gosh, I'm watching this show right now called The Boys on Amazon Prime.
Nuts, isn't it?
I mean, like, they're trying to find new and inventive ways to make people explode. It's crazy, this show. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm grieved watching it. I'm like, what in the heck? How we've become so desensitized to death.
Yeah, because when those scenes come on like that, we laugh at them.
Exactly.
You know,
I've said it over and over again. When it comes to things that are wrong, we've laughed at it and we've laundered it. And let me tell you, the more you laugh at it, the more you launder it, the easier it becomes for you to deal with it in life. It's true, man. It's just true.
We dehumanize.
We've dehumanized ourselves. We've looked at everything through a screen, through a lens, on a video game, wherever it is. People aren't people anymore. They're just personalities. They're just out there, and I can go out there and take their life, and I can make a name for myself and all this stuff. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And so what you do is you have a speedy trial, and then you have a public execution. You take them right out there,
Agreed.
And boom, firing squad. Whatever. You ain't got to agree with me. I don't care. Put them down. But you got to deal with this before it happens. I promise you, there's some crazies that are out there. All you got to do is find that Twitter follower, that Twitter guy out there who's running his mouth every damn time something comes up, and he's offering all kind of inciting violence and hate and all these things, talking about how he hates people, this and that. He got 16 followers and an avatar for a picture. Yeah, get a life, dude. Get a life. You're part of the problem. Get out there, enjoy the debate, get into it, discuss. But my God, you ain't got to hate the person you're debating. You don't have to do all that stuff, you know? So anyway.
Situational awareness.
Be aware, and educate yourself. All right, Party Foul Steve, Candice, Queen of the Ethiopians, Party Foul Mark.
Oh,
Puppet Master.
Welcome to the nation.
Party Foul Nation.
Party Foul Nation.
Yeah.
I've done that twice now, Mark.
I know. Pretty soon I'm going to start growing my hair out. And
There you go.
Party Foul Mark. I don't mean to insult
You think you're good looking now. You grow that hair out.
Hey, if you're a shooter, let me tell you one thing we've got coming up in September. Go to AmericanValorFoundation.org and join us at the clay shoot out there, the competition clay shoot. We're hoping to have about 30, 40 teams out there. So sign up. Go ahead and do it today. Get it done, because we need to fill that sucker up. Once the first week in September comes, we're going to start shutting that registration down. And I think it is September. I want to say this. Oh my God.
Did you sign me up?
No, I ain't signed you up.
Oh.
I'm not your.
Am I
I
on your
am
team?
not your keeper.
But Dad.
It's party time, Mom.
No.
All right. I love you guys. Stay safe out there. Know that we love you. We appreciate you. God bless you. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.